thank you everybody for being here to discuss this. As you mentioned, a very hot topic issue in the country right now. Kind of what we want to do here is, give the information that you need to have and to kind of cut through some of the noise that you see and really get the facts. So kind of some of our objectives for this, we're going to be, describe where we're at with hemp in Iowa, as also at the federal level. Those would be different discussions. We have a great panel here of, entrepreneurs and those involved in policy here in Iowa. And we really want to understand the challenges that they've been through both on the policy side and also on the business side. But also, even much more importantly here in Iowa, is what do farmers and Iowans need to know, in order to enter and seize upon the opportunities that this new space provides. So kind of where I, thought where we would start is some brief introductions for our panel here.
Hi, my name is MEGHAN MALLOY. As Owen said, I am a government relations attorney here in Iowa. I have been working on hemp policy for about 3 or 4 years now, and there's been several more years where this crop has tried to be reintroduced to Iowa. We do have a history of growing hemp here during World War II. So after the Farm Bill passed last month, started getting calls from a lot of farmers. Okay, great, it's legal now, can I start growing it? Yes, it's legal. No, you can't start growing it here just yet. We still have a little bit of work to do here in this state. Primarily, what we need to do first is decriminalize hemp because it is still in our state's Controlled Substances Act. After we do that, Iowa can either be the primary regulator on how we're going to grow hemp in this state. For states that don't want to be their own regulating authority, the USDA has about a year to come up with the guidelines. We believe that the state of Iowa is the correct party to be driving our economic and our agricultural destiny. So right now we are working on introducing legislation that would create that regulatory structure so our farmers can start growing. I represent various clients who are interested in hemp that include farmers, people who want to get into processing and production, and the Iowa Hemp Association.
Beautiful. Now, okay, good deal. Got a working mic. So thank you, Megan, for your introduction. We also have Monte Robertson here of San Luis Valley Hemp Company. He's a farmer and processor, specializing more on the food side. Involved also in hemp R&D. He's been doing this since 2014, so very experienced in the space. Next in we have CORBETT HEFNER, VP of R&D and Business Development for Formation Ag. They focus on engineering equipment for the hemp space, which is also very important. Just with the limited scale, there has been quite the necessity for some of that machinery. So it's a very important vertical in the space as well. Then also we have Michael Bowman of National Hemp Association. He's a cultivator, focuses as an R&D. He's been a long-time lobbyist and also was a part of writing Bill 7606, which was kind of the catalyst for all of this legislation that we now have back in the 2014 Farm Bill. So, Megan, you kind of gave us an introduction over, the situation in Iowa and what we would have to do, to really get things going here for growing season. But what does the Farm Bill, kind of really do at the federal level? What does it mean, kind of broadly for commerce? And, we just kind of want to be clear about setting some expectations and like Megan to, give her 2 cents and also any of the other panel members if they would like to.
So previously to 2018, states could choose to codify pilot programs in growing hemp. If you attended Mr. Bowman's breakout session earlier, he said there were 41 states that had such programs on the books. Iowa is one of the 9 that didn't. So what the 2018 Farm Bill now does, it completely removes hemp from the Controlled Substances Act and legalizes it and calls it what it truly is, an agricultural commodity.
That's great. That's great. Does anyone, with your entrepreneurial experience on the business side, have anything
Sure.
you'd like to add?
What the Farm Bill will do for farmers will open up the doors once we get things working again. It'll open up the doors for financing, for crop insurance, those types of things, because to this day in Colorado anyway, if you had federal money involved in your land, you couldn't grow hemp or risk losing that federal money. You could lease that land out, but you couldn't grow it yourself. And so it really opens up that door, you know, the financing, the insurance, crop insurance, those kind of things. For us, we've been researching and developing products since 2014. This will be our 6th year growing hemp, and 2019 will be our 6th year. So it's kind of going to be a little bit of business as usual, I think, for us. So.
That sounds, no, that most definitely, that sounds great. Corbett, anything to offer?
It's not really business as usual for us, because the phone calls coming in from all these other states now that it is passed in the Farm Bill has just been astounding.
Going up.
Even federal water, I've run into several farmers that had federal water that they could not use the water to grow the crop. The financing is very large. I mean, we make equipment so people want to lease or rent equipment, and we don't do that, but there was only about 3 or 4 companies that would finance equipment for hemp up until now. So I'm hoping that'll help a lot. So you can use normal channels of banking and normal people that you do business with. That's a big deal. About it.
Oh, that sounds great. Anything else you'd like to add, Michael?
Well, just really just, I think, to talk about, we got a world of haves and have-nots right now. As you look here with Monte and his group and what Corbett's doing, we're living in a world where we're entering the 6th season, and we've learned a lot and adapted a lot and created a lot of opportunity in Colorado, in spite of the limitations we had under 7606. And then we have states like Iowa and the other 8 who are, you know, probably, practically speaking, still a year from beginning to get in the game. So there's a lot of capital being moved, you know, and deployed in areas where there's investments going to be made, where those investments are going to be investments that won't be picked up and moved. So, you know, so we hope that we want this opportunity for everybody. And I think the 18 bill sets the stage for that. We still have a lot to do, though. It wasn't a panacea that just they opened the door, the barn door, and everybody's out. You know, the government went into shutdown, you know, the day after the Farm Bill was signed, so nothing that was prescribed and needed to be implemented in the Farm Bill has even begun yet. So we have to have state plans brought in, and I think now that we can peel back the limitations of finance and insurance, we're going to go a long way, and we'll move fast. But we clearly want everybody to have the opportunity and that Monte and his group and Corbett have, and to all of us to do what we do well. Americans innovate. We're innovators and entrepreneurs, and we can get there now that we have good policy in place.
I think one of the most important things that we can do is teach the teachers. You know, because when you hear the word hemp, what do you think of?
Marijuana, probably.
And that's what this bill kind of separates, and hopefully that'll help us teach the teachers to get the public, which is where the end markets have to come from, educated enough to buy these products. So that's another thing that this Farm Bill will help do. More people will start talking about it, and it will help us teach those teachers.
No, certainly. And maybe that's a kind of a good thing to go into right before we go into some more questions for you, is just to really, again, to cut through that noise. You know, people are confused about the difference between hemp and marijuana. There's hemp oil versus CBD oil. They maybe don't quite understand the different verticals that this product can be broken into. So maybe, you know, considering all of you have, you know, different experience in each one of those verticals, you know, kind of how are each of those different, just for the audience's sake?
Well, there's a couple of big misunderstandings that I've found over the years in Colorado. People get hemp oil, hemp seed oil confused with, there's a lot of buzz about CBD oil, which is the plant makes 2 different kinds of oil. The first, and the one that I'm most enthralled with, I guess, is the food grade oil, and that comes from the seed. It's important to know that there's very little or no CBD or THC in the seed, in the food, okay? The other kind of oil that the plant makes is the CBD oil. That comes from the greenery portion of the plant and is extracted through various means from the greenery portion of the plant. That's the pharmaceutical, pharmaceutical oil that you're hearing so much about and all the buzz is about. And so it's important to know those two things for starters, and then I'll just kind of.
And I would say, some of this confusion, particularly with Colorado being somewhat at the tip of the spear, when we legalized everything under one ballot initiative, the entirety of the plant. And so it was easily confused, it was easily conflated, one to the other, and we do have a lot of education yet to do, still, to your point.
No, that's I think that's a really great introduction before we start going into questions for entrepreneurs that are in these different facets of the market. So, so kind of you elaborated a little bit on it, in terms of access to financing, crop insurance. But what is, having been in this business, for a handful of years or more at this point, what is the Farm Bill going to allow you to do now that you previously couldn't? Whether that's maybe interstate commerce or, again, the financing or insurance, or, how does it mostly apply to each of your businesses?
I'm going to start.
I suppose it didn't do a whole lot for us because we make machinery, but it's allowed our customers to do a whole lot more because now you can transport it interstate. I just came back from Puerto Rico, and they're very interested in it, and they have to export too internationally in some instances. So that's going to help them some too, especially as long as they keep the same definition of the 0.3, then they have the the whole globe they can ship to in roundabout terms. It's about it for me though.
Well, and we really are a blank slate. Keep in mind that we're the largest consumer market in the world for industrial hemp products up until now, until recently, absent the gray area of the Farm Bill. The only G7 nation that we didn't allow our farmers to grow it, but we're the largest consumer market in the world for it. And so I'm really thrilled about what Corbett's doing with Formation Ag, and I think there was I can't tell, but I think there was a video of their harvesting equipment there. That's just a peek at what we're capable of doing when we open up that door. But we're pretty much void of that equipment, that infrastructure that is either going to have to be created here or imported here because of this 80-year ban.
Part of our vertical integration, I guess, has been out of necessity. We're farmers. We grow hemp for grain and for pharma, for the CBD. We had a couple of circles of each last year, 2 or 3 circles of each. And, it's a hard thing because you have to have an end market to pull all that. So there's a big chicken and egg thing, that we got to get figured out. One of the things that I tell farmers is you want to think of this as a rotational cash crop, not just a ground holding cover crop. But you can make money on this, and it's important to know as farmers. You want to plant this in your good ground. You don't want to start in your fallow ground. Treat it like a normal plant, and it'll treat you well. There's a lot of soil benefits and things, but the most important thing that you need to know is to have an end market, have a processor, and that has an end market. What I don't want to see happen is what happened to the Canadians in 1999, where they were promised that they're going to get, people came into the farming communities and promised that they're going to have processing plants and all these end markets and products, and you as farmers need to run out there and plant these ground, so we have something. So they did. Canadian farmers went and they planted tens of thousands.
It was a lot.
Of acres.
Almost 130.
Okay. So it was a lot, and none of the plants, processing plants, materialized. None of the end products materialized. Guess who got stuck holding the bag? The farmer again. I don't want that to happen. It's going to be very, very important that we go at this at a slow and measured pace and have the end market pull everything else along. We can't rush in and stumble over ourselves. It took them 5 to 7 years, I'd say, to recover from that, and then really get the industry going. You know, we're in year 6 of figuring this out here, see. So just the key point here is just because a product can be made from this plant, and there are literally thousands of them, just because a product can be made from this plant doesn't mean that there's a market for it. It doesn't mean that people will buy it, and you got to get that. It's not. We're starting industries here, and that doesn't happen overnight. You can't rush into this. I really caution you to not rush into it, you know, because there's this gold rush mentality right now, and please be careful.
And I add a little bit to that, especially, you know, like Monty said, you have the CBD oil, seed oil, then there's fiber in the herd. Everybody wants to make textiles out of this stuff. I came out of the plastics industry and made textiles from scratch, and we make decortication equipment, which separates the fiber and the herd. So that's really interesting. But do you want to make a shirt out of that? Well, there's about 6 more steps between the decortication, the initial step after you've cut and baled the product. We can break it up into fiber and herd. But what we're finding, if you go back and watch the Hemp for Victory video from the 43, 45 area, in that video you see people combing the fiber by hand. There was no machinery for that combing step, but that's the next critical key to processing fiber for textiles. And it has to be degummed, cottonized, cut into cordage pieces of staple length fiber so you can actually process it. So there's a great market opportunity for that, but we're having to innovate that second machine that's missing from scratch right now. We're working on it, but we're trying to do something today with innovation and technology instead of manpower, because we just don't have the manpower, especially where we are in Colorado. So like Monty was saying, there's 25,000 uses they'll tell you for the product, and you know, half a dozen, 2 dozen of them are viable at the moment because we have to innovate these industries from scratch again. Like you said, I tell everybody it starts with a sale. Work your way backwards. Don't worry about the seed and the planting yet. Start with where you're going to put it. If you go to Canada and even into Montana, there's a lot of grain sitting around that they just put in the ground and they didn't really have a place to take it yet. It's going to come. You know, people like Monty are putting in plants to dehull and seed press, and it's fantastic stuff. I mean, I came out of the petroleum industry, and 2 years ago I said, yeah, this is all pie in the sky stuff. The more I go to the shows and talk to people and learn and innovate stuff, it's just an amazing plant, the things that you can do with it, and there's a chance for you to make money at it. Really good chance.
As long as people will buy what you're selling.
I would just say under the heading of cautiously optimistic, I think with the speakers we listened to today, you know, Farmer D and Martha, amongst many of the things we've talked about today, that, you know, I think the food sector is shifting under our feet. We're seeing a transition to different kinds of food. The millennial and the Gen X's and for the most part are going to drive a different kind of marketplace. And so with social media, with a good story. This is an unpaid, unsolicited endorsement of Monte's products. But if you go to their website and see what they make, you know, they've spent it's a good sampling of what can be, and you think of the opportunities now with technology and that merging and fusion of technology and entrepreneurship and resources and media and to create this new pipeline for products direct to the consumer that have a story to them. I think is really a real opportunity for this sector.
Awesome. I did kind of have another question that maybe dovetails on something you were just saying previously in terms of farmers finding those buyers. Is it more because maybe those farmers don't quite know how to connect with those buyers at this point, or is it the market isn't mature enough that some of those buyers don't exist of those industrial products? Just maturity all the way around?
I would say C, all of the above. There's a lot of interesting characters out there, and it's something that you need to be aware of. And it's going to be important that you have relationships and build trusted inner circles with people that know what they're doing and that have some experience, because there's going to be a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's a lot of noise and fallout.
Fallout, yeah, and people rushing in to make a quick buck. And I'm really adamant about protecting the farmers. I want to build a structure that helps the farmer and something that will last, something for, not for now, but for future farmers.
Certainly.
You know, that's what's important. And we have to be careful, because if we run out of the gate like Canada did, we're going to stumble and fall. And I hope I'm not offending anybody from Canada here. Sorry if I do.
I know.
So it's important that we learn from those lessons, and because if we stumble and fall, then it's going to give the industry and all the subsequent industries a black eye. And I think we're smarter and better than that, and I think we can take our time. And I tell people, they say, "How did you get started?" And I said, well, I started off slow, and then I really slowed down. You know, because we're building something new. This is a whole new industry, and it's not to be taken lightly.
A curse and a blessing.
True. It's
Like Monty said, slow is definitely a thing. I get calls from all over the country in the Midwest, everywhere, overseas, that I want to plant 600 acres of hemp. When you're growing farm, 600 acres of corn is not that big a deal. 600 acres of hemp is a very big deal. Handling, especially if you're growing for CBD, the infrastructure to handle that is a big deal. You want to start growing hemp, put 5 acres in, just see what it does.
Good point.
Like Monty said, put it in your best ground. Hemp does not like substandard ground. It doesn't like water. It's a whole list of things until it's about week 8, and then it's tough as can be. That's why we engineer hemp equipment for harvest specific for hemp, because it's nasty stuff when it comes to harvest time.
It's a tough crop. It'll burn an old combine down like that. I mean,
And burn a new one down.
yeah. I mean,
You're just a ray of sunshine.
well, I want
Everything's bad.
I want them to
true,
be, yeah. I just want to be
Oh, I know.
in
I'm
the
with you.
interest
I'm
of
just,
full disclosure. You need to know about the potential things that could go wrong, and so,
Google, go to YouTube and Google combines on fire. It'll be there. It'll be there.
yeah.
Yeah, and they've grown. We talked about Canada. You got to remember, Canada's only grown for grain. Up until October 17th, it was illegal to harvest the flower and the bud in Canada. So I spend some time up in Canada too, and they're almost at the exact same stage as every one of these new states coming on, because they don't know anything about CBD content or growing for CBD. I mean, these pictures we put up here quick are all from Monty and Wright Oaks Farms and some of our equipment in there, just to show you, what it looks like in Colorado and what the farm looks like, fields look like, and
Is it up to?
just so you can see what it is.
Yes, I guess maybe that was a good collection of some of the things that all of you have learned. But I kind of did want to transition into as we're fortunate to have veterans of the space here. What are some of the the largest take homes or the things that you've learned in your trials and tribulations early on in the space?
Start.
Well, I'm going to start from the policy perspective, because I think I've been an advocate of public policy around rule issues for quite some time. And if you get the policy right, everything else kind of falls into place eventually. So I think and I'm going to just give Colorado as an example. We did a good job educating our legislature from 2008-ish to 2012 before we passed it. And we've had a legislature that this is not a partisan issue. Every bill that we've run through related to hemp or expanding the industry or making it a better platform for our agricultural entrepreneurs has been a unanimous vote. We have a legislature behind us and people behind us, so that when you have that kind of impetus behind you, almost anything's possible. So I think get policy right, and I know, we're here in Iowa where you don't have policy yet, but get the policy right. Everybody else will step in, and it'll happen.
Certainly.
Well, and we kind of ran into something similar too when I started to take this issue on and started talking to the legislature about it. We had farmer legislators who said, I saw this growing left over on Grandpa's farm from the war, totally got it. And then we had some other lawmakers who said, well, you're talking about marijuana. You're talking about cannabis. And I said, I am talking about cannabis, but I'm not talking about the psychoactive type. oh, well, it's all the same to me. And I said, well, you know, a bulldog and a chihuahua are both dogs, but they're not the same kind of dog. You know, that's kind of what we're trying to compare it to. So it was a huge educational effort. However, last year, the bill that we had, and at the time, you know, it was going to be one of these pilot programs because the 2018 Farm Bill had not been passed yet. We were able to get it through every committee and the Senate chamber unanimously. It was not a partisan issue at all. It was very much an Iowa issue to benefit all Iowans, especially our farmers. So we're looking forward to seeing what we can do in this legislative session yet.
One of the things that I've learned is how to quickly educate people, how to tell the difference or know the difference between industrial hemp and marijuana. We're not interested in the marijuana. We're in probably the most conservative county in the state. We couldn't have picked a tougher place to start, truly. But what I learned quickly is how to educate people to the differences. And I say it like this. We have ponderosa pine trees and lodgepole pine trees. They are two different varieties of the same genus of plant. We have poppy seeds for poppy seed dressing and poppy seed muffins and poppy seeds that they make heroin out of. Two different varieties of the same genus of plant. We have hemp and marijuana. Two different varieties of the same genus of plant. You put it into context that people understand, and it just clicks. You can see the light go on very quickly. So it's, you know, it's important to understand those differences so you can talk about it quickly and easily and help teach those teachers. Another one of the things that I learned is research. It takes a lot because you kind of gotta figure things out and pick a lane or whatever and focus on that. It's so easy to get distracted, you know, with all the noise and, you know, different things that can be made and done from this plant. Pick something and focus on it and stick with it.
I would say too, you know, as we demystify this plant, and, you know, arguably the hemp plant up against a corn plant, barley, or potatoes is equally as benign. Now, we don't drive by a cornfield and say, oh my gosh, there's a bourbon field, you know, are they fingerprinted, are they permitted? Or you go by a potato field and say, oh my gosh, there's a vodka field, or barley, it's a beer field, you know, and same as, you know, a hemp saying, well, that must be marijuana. You know, it's part of this demystification process that we're going through, and it's going to take, honestly, it's going to take a lot of education. I still go to a lot of legislative offices on Capitol Hill, and even with all the work we've done, there's still that resistance. They still don't want to believe the differences.
Yeah.
McConnell hasn't whipped him into shape at this point.
Yeah. Like Bonnie was saying, study, research, because there is a difference. One of the things we learned from a machinery standpoint is I only get one chance a year to put a machine in the field and see if it works. So I'm looking very hard to find other places to cultivate the crop. That's why we went to Puerto Rico, because we need a place to grow some more and try to help innovate the machinery to help the farmers out. We just don't get a chance to do that. I mean, where we live at 8,000 feet, it's pretty cold up there for a long chunk of the year, so we just don't get those opportunities. And then education, I learned that when I'm talking to people, I still have to help them understand. So, you know, call and ask questions of people that have been in the business. They'll help you out some, because there's, like you said, a lot of sneaky people in the deal, and if somebody comes and offers you a really big chunk of money per acre to grow a crop, you better call and ask somebody, make sure that's true, because usually it's not.
Very true. I think, you know, and a question that's even more, you know, applicable to everyone in this room, and especially as we're here in Iowa, is I wanted to ask, you know, our entrepreneurs here, you know, as we're talking to, you know, landholders and corn and soybean farmers, you know, if you had to speak to any of them that were looking to get involved in this space and enter it, you know, what is the advice that you would give them? You know, what is it that you feel that they need most to be prepared for? Whether that be, you know, whether it's genetics or machinery or anything in between.
Start small. That's the first one. Don't go out and plant 2,000 acres of it. Just start small and learn, because it runs differently through all your equipment. You know, you have to store it differently. You have to harvest a little differently for grain. For CBD, it's completely different than anything you've done. So yeah, slow and steady. You learn, educate yourself, and start with your end product in mind. What are you going to sell? What are you going to market to? Study that. Figure out who you're going to do with. Make sure there's somebody you want to do business with first off, and then start small.
I'd say echo the start small, and I would say I think one of the exciting opportunities about this is the participation rate for both small and large farms. You're going to have, you know, this is a way I think for some small farms who under, you know, just generally commodity production are struggling. This is a place to carve out a niche and bring kids home and do that thing, and then to get to the kind of scale we need for textiles and plastics and things like that, we're going to have to get to those, to the large landers. There's multiple opportunities here, but I think in this particular case, you know, the real opportunities because it's open to the entirety of the scale of size.
I think there's going to be a lot of, now that the Farm Bill is passed, there's going to be a lot of ways to get seed in the country that weren't available before, and so that's going to be something that you're going to have to research and find good, credible seed folks, and make sure that you know that variety that you're looking at for whatever end product that you've chosen to grow for will do well in this environment. It's you need to do your research just like any other crop. You know, it's a commodity, or soon will be. So, but it's important to know where it's coming from and who it's coming from, and how much to plant and who to take it to, and there's a lot of research that needs to go into this.
And with that, I think a role of the land grant universities, you know, I think there's a real opportunity for them to step in and help, you know, develop this industry. We're basically started from scratch in Colorado. We have great partners at CSU. In part because the legislature has been very supportive of them as well. But I do think the land grants can play a unique role in helping us. Yeah, we were working with Adams State University in the Valley, and their marketing team, and they've gone through phase one, and the kids are real excited about the project rather, because you know, it's a new thing. There's a lot of pardon the pun, but buzz around hemp and that kind of thing. And so we're working with them in the marketing department and identifying opportunities to kind of learn and grow the whole chain, educational and financial, grow everything together. It's important that we work that way, I think.
No, certainly. You know, I kind of wanted to, initially I thought we had a little more time, so I'm glad we kind of finished up on that question, but I'm sure there's plenty of interested people in the audience that may have questions for our experts here, and I wanted to open up the floor to anyone out there that would have a question.
Thank you. Two questions. One is profitability for hemp, and then two, thinking about Iowa, what might be the vision for how hemp fits in with our corn and bean rotation? We want everybody growing hemp, or there's certain places we want hemp to be grown? You know, what would be optimal, do you think?
Well, the true answer is it depends on what you're growing for. I mean, I think, you know, I've experienced making $200 an acre. I've read about $8,000 an acre. So it really depends on what you grow it for, and the Canadians, you know, they say that they can get, depending on the variety, anywhere from 700 to 1,200 pounds an acre of grain. I'm more interested in the grain and that kind of side, and I'll let Corbett talk about the CBD side, but, you know, for the profitability, it's farming, and you know, need to look at that. I would say that it's a great rotational crop, you know, because it leaves the soil healthy, and we've had real good luck in rotating it in potatoes, and so I think there's a lot of benefit in rotating it. I don't think you want it to be just your only crop. You know, we still, on the farms, we still grow potatoes and barley and, you know, other crops, and we rotate that hemp out just like you do farming. You know, it's just another tool for you. It's another crop for you. That's, you know, it's not the panacea. It is not. It's just another tool, another avenue that we can learn from and grow with.
Okay, we have time for one more question here.
If I could just jump just real quick to the last question, though. The hemp is a great bioaccumulator, and I think, particularly in Iowa's case, where you have water quality issues from runoff, I think hemp in buffer zones and its ability to absorb and help mitigate some of those issues is something we don't talk, because we talk about products, but some of the properties of that plant, I think, are very applicable to Iowa.
What inputs do you need? You have seed. What other things do you apply to grow the crop?
So when you're farming, it doesn't, you know, it's a weed. And it likes a little nitrogen, phosphorus. I recommend you get an agronomist, do your soil tests. It likes a little nitrogen up front. It only needs 8 to 13 inches of water per year, which is about half of what barley and potatoes take, and a third what alfalfa takes. You know, which is really important to us in you know, a high plains desert. So you need a little bit of fertilizer. There's no pesticides. You can put that money back in your pocket. No herbicides, no fungicides so far. You know, it's a very tough plant, and so a little bit of water and some sunshine. I mean, the reason it's so strong is because that stalk has those long fibers to keep that seed to keep from breaking in the wind. And so all you need is, you know, a little bit of moisture and a little bit of fertilizer, and it'll grow.
Okay, we want to thank Owen Parker and all our panelists. Let's give them a nice round of applause for taking time here today. Thank you, you all.